We are talking about sexual harassment here on Summer Mornings, and one texter has put in about what about responding to allegations if you are the alleged perpetrator of sexual harassment. It's a good question, and that impels us to turn to Katherine Teh-White, who is a managing director at Futureye, which is a social licence specialist, because it seems that many alleged perpetrators are actually turning towards public relations company, crisis management company. So what sort of services would this entail? Katherine, welcome.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I've got a couple of different experiences in relation to sexual harassment, having been a victim of one myself and starting up one of Australia's first campaigns in 1997. So I've got the angle from the understanding how to respond to crisis as well as having had the experience.
What did you learn from that, obviously a fairly grievous experience in was it 97?
Yes, 96, 97.
96, 97. What did you learn from that practically that could help others who were in a similar situation?
Well, I was petrified about the threats that were made to me. So I was basically told that if I didn't comply with his requests for sex, that he would ruin my career. And then he went around and did a number of things to lie about what I'd done and said. And so I was quite petrified that he was going to actively undermine my career. And that's probably the most sort of chilling part that I still remember from that experience. And that's why that solidarity that we've seen in Golden Globes and the importance of kind of coming together as a community on this is so important.
Yeah. It's in fact one SMS has sent through on 0437 774 774 saying that I learned the hard way that HR departments are there for the employer, not the employees. Did you discover that kind of response when you did try and take it through HR, or did you take another channel?
Yeah, he was actually the global head of HR, so that made it a bit more complicated. I had made the decision to leave, and because I just didn't want to, challenge the HR and system, and I thought it would just get very, very stressful. So I decided to leave. I took another job, and then I got a letter in the mail saying that from the managing director that they'd done an investigation, and in the investigation they had decided that there was no point in anything that I had made that was serious and to be taken seriously. So they had investigated and decided there were no supporting basis for my allegations. And that just infuriated me. And that was what made me take it to the Victorian Equal Opportunity Commission and pursue it as a case, because I just thought it was incredibly unfair the way the HR practices sort of essentially ganged up on me and threatened me in that way.
One texter has texted in, I'm talking to Katherine Teh-White here, who's the Managing Director at Futureye, which is a social licence specialist. I'll have to explore that title in a minute. But a texter has said, Lizzie, in fact, from Highton, she has asked you, in fact, specifically, Carolyn, that about a rapid response pathway for women who are suffering abuse, because, in fact, many women who are suffering such predicaments don't have that luxury to. They can't buy time. Things are at an extreme level. What's a kind of more rapid response that you could recommend?
Yeah, I've been. We worked very hard on this in our campaign over 10 years to get it acknowledged as an issue and have a safe place where women could go. And as Caroline said from CASA, who was part of this group, we were working with Mark Darcy from CASA. When she was there. And there isn't really that much that can be done immediately if the organisation itself is not willing to take it seriously. So there's a couple of things to take into account is in the lead up to going into an organisation, finding out what their natural justice systems are and what happens if there is an issue and what HR's process is. And what you want to look for is an organisation that's got a process outside of just HR and the normal structures inside an organisation, if you can. And if you don't have that luxury, then I agree, police, CASA and the Victorian Equal Opportunity Commission and also your union are currently the only options that we have. So it is an urgent public policy issue that needs to be dealt with so that women can go safely to, say, somewhere like the Fair Work Commission, and that the employer and the impacts on the employer could be more significant.
Another question I've got for you, Katherine, is that idea of now that you work in PR, or I know that you have long been in that business, you must be talking with companies who have these sorts of issues that arise. What's the best way of handling it from the outside looking in?
Yes, well, that was the interesting thing on watching how these things have unfolded for a range of sexual harassment cases, from Kevin Spacey to through to Robert Doyle, has been that it seems that the process hasn't been clear to the people who have been threatened, and on the victim side,
yes,
around what they can do, but also on the other side, which is the person who's been the perpetrator. I read very closely the letter that C.K. Louis wrote, where he said, "I've now understood." It was his apology.
That's right.
And this is, of course, what a good crisis manager does: deeply reflect on what you did wrong and work out what you can gain from insight and make it right. Take the steps to forgiveness. So C.K. Louis has a reflection. His reflection is, I'm powerful and, I've bended your will, essentially. But his depth of reflection isn't sufficient to make up for the outrage generated by his behaviour. And so it fails as an apology.
It was a sorry but situation in the case of C.K. Louis.
Yep.
It's a very complex space, but it's one that actually is now seeing real action. It must be pleasing to you seeing it both from a former victim of sexual harassment as well as someone who's dealing through public relations and through crisis management. With this topic amongst your caseload. What do you think we can look forward to as a community in terms of sexual harassment in 2018?
Well, I think the biggest step that's been made is in driving towards equality in the workplace. In Iceland today, where they've made it illegal to pay women under men's salaries. Now, this is a huge step forward, considering that once upon a time, 25 years ago, we said equal pay was now a legal expectation, but we didn't demand of them something more than that. And I think that's sort of at the heart of these sexual harassment and workplace issues, is that violence in the workplace is a symptom of the lack of equality in our workplace as it stands, and that affects our diversity of thinking, diversity of thought, as well as the ability for our women to contribute effectively in the workplace.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for your time, Katherine. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Katherine Teh-White, Managing Director at Futureye, a social licence specialist, which is one aspect of public relations.